Left, Right and Centre. I'm Nidhi Razdan. Tonight, a landmark ruling by the Supreme Court to free the bureaucracy from political interference. As the court orders fixed tenures for babus, will this really end political control? And doctors demand a cap on compensation that should be paid for medical negligence after the Supreme Court awards a record 6 crores to a complainant. The question is that fair? That's a little later in the program. But first, in a landmark ruling that could have a huge impact on the way India's bureaucracy functions, the Supreme Court today ordered fixed tenures for officials and said bureaucrats should not act on verbal orders given by their political bosses. The court's directive comes after a series of cases where IAS officers like Ashok Khemka and Durga Nagpal have been targeted or shunted out for political reasons.
Will this be a shot in the arm for honest officers hindered and punished by political bosses? The Supreme Court today said there should be a fixed tenure for civil servants. The court has directed the centre and states to set up a panel to transfer and promote IAS officers. The verdict came after 83 former bureaucrats petitioned the top court.
It's a landmark judgment. Today is the first major step that has been taken in this regard.
Recently, Haryana IAS officer Ashok Khemka and UP's young officer Durga Shakti Nagpal had to face the wrath of their political bosses. Today, the court said, if civil servants act on oral instructions, they must record it in writing, otherwise the purpose of RTI will be defeated. If civil servants act on oral instructions, it will encourage corruption. Also, fixed tenure of bureaucrats will promote professionalism, efficiency and good governance. Much of the deterioration in the functioning of the bureaucracy is due to political interference. The Supreme Court also asked Parliament to enact a law, and until then the court orders would be in force. The government though says a procedure is already in place.
We have got the Civil Services Board. The selection of the officers and also promotion and all is being done by the Civil Service Board in Government of India.
Former bureaucrats have welcomed the top court's verdict.
Whenever there is a problem with a civil servant functioning effectively or honestly, there are pressures for transferring him. So I consider this is a very important judgment for the morale of civil service in the country.
The top court wants bureaucrats to work without any political fear. But will this happen? This same court directed reforms in police administration almost 7 years ago. But most of the states are yet to implement it fully. And the issue is back to the court. So the question is how and when these new reforms will be implemented. In New Delhi with Sunil Prabhu, this is Arunachalam Vaidyanathan for NDTV.
So will this order by the Supreme Court really free India's bureaucracy from political control? Joining us on the program tonight from Chennai, we're joined by PC Parak, the former coal secretary, who's been in the news for many reasons, particularly on the coal scam in the last few weeks, and many issues he has raised through letters that he had written at that time about political interference have come to the fore. We have TSR Subramaniam, former cabinet secretary, who was a petitioner in this case to the Supreme Court. We have also with us senior advocate of the Supreme Court, Mr. KTS Tulsi, and the political panel tonight, Anand Gadgil, spokesperson of the Congress party, and Mr. Madhukar Jaitley, advisor to the Uttar Pradesh government. Mr. Subramaniam, let me ask you first, but with what Vaidyanathan actually left off in that story, which is that while you have said that today's order is a landmark first step, there are also concerns about implementation. For instance, as Vaidya said, you had an important verdict on police reforms the court gave about 7 years ago. That is still pending. The matter is back with the court. No one has really implemented that in spirit. So is there some concern that this may only remain on paper?
Nidhi, you are asking a very difficult question to answer in a yes or no manner. I think, the time in which Prakash Singh's judgment came 6-7 years back, and this judgment of Supreme Court, there's a sea change. There is now general awareness of the deterioration in services. There is great anger against poor governance and a venal governing system. Also, media like you have become strong. Civil society has become stronger. Then the constitutional institutions have come up. RTI has come up. My guess would be that it is no more possible for such a direction to the Supreme Court to be taken lightly by the states. I think the service associations, in fact civil society at large, will take this up very strongly. In fact, this will give a fillip to the implementation of the Prakash Singh recommendations. So I agree with you. If it does not happen, that is a very bad sign for our democracy, because the Supreme Court is the final arbiter of our constitution, final interpreter of the constitution. If its orders are not taken seriously and the deliberate flouting of them, that is a bad portent for our democracy.
Mr. Parak, there are a lot of important things the Supreme Court has said today, among them fixed tenures, of course, for bureaucrats, and also that bureaucrats shouldn't act on oral instructions because that will encourage corruption. Everything should be there in writing. The court saying that the deterioration in the functioning of the bureaucracy is because of political interference. But sir, let me put this point to you. There is also inefficiency in India's bureaucracy. What if a situation comes where a bureaucrat is inefficient, isn't performing his or her task competently enough? What does then the government do? Is there a redressal? That person may not deserve to complete that full fixed tenure and should be transferred out basically on inefficiency. What does one do then?
Well, my view is...
Mr. Parak, this question is to you. Yes, sir.
Okay.
My view is that transferring an officer is not the right way of punishing him. If you feel that he is not doing his duties properly and he is not performing, then the right course is not to transfer him but to take disciplinary action against him.